advisors are us. If we end up working together, I'm going to be your financial advisor. My name's Kelly McAdvisorson. I'm Tiffany. This is my husband, Dan. So tell me, what brings you in? I was watching an episode of Dateline recently, and I saw a woman who had pushed her husband off a cliff. She made some bank, and so trying to see what my options are. I'm just joking. So we are trying to be more adulty and stuff.
Okay, what she's trying to say is we are ready to invest in stocks, okay? Get a college fund going, retirement plan, stuff like that.
Great. You guys are in good hands. Did you bring a copy of your bank statements with you? Good. Thank you. I will take a look at these. Somebody likes Taco Bell, huh? Right there. Okay. Whoa. Let's not point fingers here. Didn't know you were the Gordita police. I was just teasing you.
Speaking of, is there a way to like cap Taco Bell and like Amazon purchases? Because I kid you not, it looks like a male strip club at our house. There are packages everywhere.
Are we talking about capping stuff? Because I will literally cap that. Whoa, oh my gosh. Sorry. What I would like to do is a risk analysis test. So we'll determine whether or not you want to kind of play it safe and invest in bonds, or whether or not you want to be a little more risky and invest in stock. Hello? Sorry. You were saying words. I heard them, but my brain, it was like, what is she saying? And it just kind of like shut down. So I took like a little mini nap. But I heard what you said. Why don't you tell me what you do now? They didn't teach this stuff in school, okay? Like I learned about the planets, you know what I mean? And Pluto and like George Washington. Like, okay, so we would probably start off labeling you guys as beginners. And that's no offense intended. It's not like you're a beginner. You know who's on the $100 bill at least. Benjamin Button. Oh my God. Look, we didn't go to college, which is exactly why we're here. So that we could get our kids college funds and they can become doctors and get rich and support us pretty much. I like where your head's at. Is it possible to have just college funds for like 2 of the kids? Because I have a feeling that like the third one isn't going to be going. Your 3-year-old? I feel like that's a little early. She's more of like a felon. Well, okay. I'm not super combative, try to light things on fire and stuff. So we're just, you know what I mean? We're trying to make smart moves. So, like a bail bond fund, we could just set up, just have that ready to go. I'm not sure if you're joking or not, but we have lots of options and places to put your money so that hopefully we'll see some growth. That's what you said. Hey, we'd like to retire in like 10, 20 minutes or so. That's a little sooner than probably that's not going to happen. Hypothetically speaking, if I were to, let's say, run off with like Channing Tatum or my daughter's basketball coach or something just crazy and random, completely hypothetical, would I have to split everything with him, or do I get to take it? I feel like I'm being punked right now a little bit. Like, Dr. Butcher, where are you? This can't be real. Hey, can we scratch the college fund thing and just put a vending machine in the house? Yeah. I feel like we're getting a slip and slide in the backyard. It's not, this isn't like, ooh, I have an idea. I'd like to buy stock in Disney Plus, okay? Final answer. Those things you're saying literally have nothing to do with Chippendale Rescue Rangers. What? Brave little toaster, dude? Are you kidding me? The brave little toaster. I might cry. Me too. What about dun, 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 Inspector? I just remember there's a thing I got.
So good morning. I thought that was a pretty good random video on investing or not investing in this case. So good morning, everybody. Welcome to the AutoHub show. Thanks for coming. next. So we have to start with our George video. George says, I'm gonna get the secret, everybody. I'm gonna let the cat in the bag. I'm gonna show you my ace on my sleeve. There it is. Are you ready for this? My special gentleman out of the Wild West, in the Wild West. My man Jeff, the AutoHub show people. These gentlemen are all about the customer experience. We're all about mentors. They're one of my mentors, people, gentlemen, Ian, Jeff. You're truly one of my mentors. You're mentors to me and hundreds of people across the car business, from the East Coast, the West Coast, the North Pole, the South Pole. I've been on your show. You're looking for the best of the car business. You're looking for the best show. Hot show. The man Ian, the man Jeff. What? We're journey. Thanks, George. So, as always, there's a few books. So it was a little hard picking books because I wasn't sure about the skill level of the audience in terms of investing. So I picked a few. Obviously, there's many. One of the ones that I started with was The Intelligent Investor. If you didn't know anybody, didn't know a gentleman called Warren Buffett, he probably learned a lot of what he initially knew from Benjamin Graham, and the book, The Intelligent Investor, is a really good starter book for anyone who wants to invest in anything. It really talks about the how, the why, and all that stuff. Common Sense Investing and A Random Walk Down Wall Street are two others I selected. There's many, but it's a good, those are, I think, a good foundation. So, on with the show. We have a special disclaimer for this show, so maybe Jeff can talk about it.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. And we have our normal disclaimer, which says that the views of our guests are entirely yours and theirs, and gets us off the hook that we are not necessarily the views of the AutoHub show. But of course, this is a financial show, and the opinions of the guests are theirs alone. Before you make any financial decisions, do your homework and understand that all investments carry risks. Before you invest in anything discussed here, do your homework first. Bitcoin, just kidding. So it is, we welcome everybody here and we thank you. That video is something that we got a real kick out of because car people are notorious for big ideas and living life on the edge. And I quite enjoyed some of the things that the lady talked about, and of course the man there, the vending machines and Disney Plus and everything. We always have that. So enjoy, everybody, and hopefully we can get some information today on investing your future in automotive. So last week we had our Does Your Pay Plan Suck show. And it was very well received, very well intended. We had our friend John Latka on aboard, and we had Greg Cookson from Auto Careers. Very good company, by the way. I hear it's outstanding with a great CEO. And it was very interesting. We talked about the pay plan and all the ups and downs. And of course, please look it up online, and we can do that. This shows a bit of a departure from our usual shows, because we have 3 people on board. 2 of them are financial professionals from the world of finance, which is Adnan and Aaron. I'll introduce you in just a second. And of course, from the automotive industry, from multiple platforms, Farid Ahmed, who's finances everything. So some of the stuff that's financial today, we did have some American people on board, but I think they'd like to celebrate their long weekend down there. So everybody here is Canadian, but basic financial advice is basic financial advice. So without further ado, I'll introduce our guests. First of all, we have Farid Ahmed joining us from the lovely vacation capital of Toronto, from Dealer Solutions. and a whole bunch of other companies. Fareed, if you can just give us a brief introduction of yourself, please.
Good morning, everybody. Jeff, thank you for such a glorious introduction. Yes, we do own a number of companies, all specializing in the automotive industry. Dealer Solutions Mergers and Acquisitions are the leaders in brokering deals across Canada and the United States. Our recruitment company, Auto Careers Group, is also the largest in placing people in car dealers. And we just recently, this year, have launched a company called Drive Investment Partners, which is to raise equity to finance general managers buying into their dealerships. There you go, Jeff.
Thank you very much. And then we have joining us from the actual center of the universe, Vancouver, BC, we have Adnan Sawar, who's a financial and life advisor with World Financial Group. Adnan, if you could just say a few brief words, we'd appreciate it.
Sure, I got my start working with Dr. Mohammed Yunus in Bangladesh, who won the Nobel Peace Prize for helping 10 million women off the streets of Bangladesh and turn them into business people. And I played a sport called cricket. I studied in London, England. I went to London Business School. I have a Bachelor of Science. I have an MBA, I have an IT degree, all in marketing. And once I graduated, I was an investment banker for Merrill Lynch. And when I came to Canada, my degrees were just pieces of paper. They're not Canadian. And my global work experience as an investment banker was nothing. They offered me a job as a teller. So I said, thank you, but no thank you. I went and started a real estate business in Toronto for 4 years. I ran it, made a bunch of money, and lost it all in the 2008-2009 crisis. In one day, I just had the shirt on my back. I have a family, so I moved to Vancouver, knowing nobody, knowing nothing. Started teaching as a professor at University of British Columbia, and at the same time, I started my own business, my own practice, with just one SFU medical service student. Now we have offices in Vancouver, in Calgary, in Edmonton, in Toronto, and Richmond, where I live. So 5 offices. That's my story.
Terrific. Thank you so much. And of course, also joining us from the obviously another World Financial, another city in Calgary, World Financial, is Aaron Pays, also a financial and life advisor. Welcome, Aaron. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Good morning, everyone. And this is my first time here on your show, and I like the way you guys started it. You guys started with a funny note, and that was great. That was great to get everybody into the right mood. I came into this industry, in the financial industry, about 12 years ago. Before that, I was, still continuing with my profession. I'm a project manager that handles high voltage transmission and distribution lines. So I've got lots of experience in high voltage transmission. And then when I got introduced to the financial industry, it was like, wow, I didn't know all this stuff was there. And all I thought was to make money and keep it in the bank and, let it grow and I'll take care of it. And, they'll take care of me. And I was told, no, that's not the way things happen. You need to do something else as well. And I got introduced to the company. I met Adnan a few years ago and we struck up a good relationship. And we said, you know what, let's take this and go to as many people as possible. We come out with solutions that can actually help people realize what they should have and what they don't, and we get them together to say, yes, that makes sense, so let's go with that. So that's my kind of background. I was actually born in Kuwait many years ago. I went back to Kuwait to do my, I studied there. I studied in India and I went back to Kuwait to work. And then when things didn't get too pleasant, when Saddam Hussein decided to come into Kuwait, we said, that's not the place I want to get my kids grow up. We moved to a safe place, Canada. And of course, oil and gas being the industry that attracted me to Calgary. And that's where I started my, career here in the late 90s. So that's my background. I'm happy to be here. And, guys, we can chat about lots of other things as well. Thank you so much.
I have a quick joke to share with everybody. I always say that your banker knows 0%. That's why they give you 0%.
One thing I have to say that I always say to anybody I've ever met that comes from warm places to Calgary is, how did that go when you got off the plane in Calgary?
But we came in June, though. It wasn't so bad in June when we landed. It's when we came to October we realized where we had come to. It was started getting really cold, and we hadn't seen that kind of cold before ever in my life, right? So 40s, and you said -20. It was just a number that you saw. When it became -40, we knew what that number was.
Oh yeah. Well, let's not kid each other. For those of you in cold climates, it's really only a number between 25 below and 40 below. It's
That's
just
correct.
a number.
That's correct.
Anyways, thank you very much, everybody, and we'll get started. Our first question, it's very interesting we have people on board that aren't from the car industry because sometimes it's an eye-opening thing for them. But many people in the car industry are notorious for living day to day, while few are long-term planners. And of course, the few that are long-term planners tend to do better, of course. So a two-part question for you is, what do you recommend to people to help them invest in their financial future when their contributions to their dealerships are sweat equity and commission based? And how would this differ for those who have earned in minority stakes in their dealerships? So first of all, we'll start with Adnan because he was the first person to log in.
So, you know what? I like, there's a person in the United States, his name is Robert Kiyosaki, right? He wrote lots of books about finance, and I like what he always said. He said, before you invest in anything, invest in your financial education. And Ian mentioned Warren Buffett. He always says that, invest in something you do understand. If you like cars, then yeah, invest in cars. There's antique cars you can buy. You can buy a DB5, and for $1,000 and make $10 million. So it's always what you understand. If you like real estate, yeah, go into real estate. Go get a real estate license and hire a realtor and go to town and buy some real estate. If you like stocks, again, find out the people who manage those companies. Are they doing insider trading or not? Find out everything you can about it. Then go into it, right? And I have a book recommendation for everybody. Ian recommended everything. I recommend everybody to read this book, The 10 Secrets Revenue Canada Does Not Want You to Know. It's a national bestseller by David M. Watt. So I'm going to put it in the chat box for everybody. Before you invest in anything, please read this book, right? Because the number one killer of money in Canada and the United States is taxes. Number one killer of money, taxes and inflation. If you can beat, so these are your two best friends you cannot unfriend in Facebook. Right?
Thank you.
So if you can beat those two, then we can have a conversation, right? That's where I would start.
Terrific. Thank you. Aaron, how about yourself?
Well, the first concept of making money is to have money first. So I believe that the first thing that we have to do is find the money in the beginning and then start thinking about where can I let it grow as the best I can. And like Adnan said, you always have to think about the foundation. And the foundation is where you're going to make sure that you're going to be covered come what may. So once you cover those bases, then you can go into anything that you have a desire to do. For example, like Adnan said, if you are into stocks, learn it. Don't just depend on somebody to do it for you. You should get involved with it. If you love cars, get into it. Learn everything that you can, and that's when you start becoming a master of what you're doing, because nobody can take advantage of you if you have the knowledge. So I really believe that you have to know what you're doing, and always cover your bases, and then do everything else after that.
Fantastic. So Fareed, again, what are your recommendations to people in the industry? And of course, you have a specialized position on this, and then how would that differ from your staff that are just sweat equity and commission to those who have minority stakes?
That's a fair question. The automotive industry has a few difficulties in entering the ownership section of the automotive industry. It's a very capital intensive business. Sorry, I was losing my words there for a second. And general managers are taught and come through the runs in the automotive industry and really understand the business. They understand their metrics, they understand their KPIs. But very much like the previous two speakers have just mentioned, what they don't do, because there really isn't a school to do it in, what they don't really do is really invest in learning not only how to invest in a car dealership and buy a car dealership, but more importantly, how do you exit once you buy in a car dealership? How are you going to return the maximum return on your capital? And is a car dealership the best way to invest? Most general managers that get into the car dealership business put a lot, basically put all their money into it and then hope that sweat equity and profitability rises and increases their ownership of that business. But as we've seen during COVID, that's not always a very successful strategy. So one of the things when we're lending money to general managers that are looking to buy in, I was a bit surprised actually at how little or how few general managers truly understood the financial structure of getting into a business and investing. And I can't tell you the number of general managers I've sat down with and said, I've got $500,000. And when they've actually educated themselves as to what it takes to buy a car dealership, they quickly come to the realization that they could put $500,000 in many other vehicles that could give them a much higher return and a lot more security. So I think, just like the previous two people were saying, education is the key.
Absolutely.
Terrific.
Great answer. Yeah, well, we have a couple questions. Again, this is a two-part question. Dealerships have compensation plans of countless variations that are not only different from dealership to dealership, but may vary from department to department. What's the best practice to help individuals come up with an investment plan from a dealership perspective that makes sense for employees? That's number one. And number two, what's your advice to dealers in terms of RSPs, or in the US, 401ks, contribution for their staff to assist them in long-term planning? Because we all know maybe they don't plan, as well as they could. So why don't you start with this, Fareed, since we talked to you last? What's your thought on this?
Sure. I had the pleasure of working with most probably 2/3 of the car dealers in Canada. And what is disappointing when it comes to the RSPs is not many stores I know or groups have any form of RSP contribution or have not even structured one. Now, there's a few reasons why I think that is, and this is just my personal opinion. Staff turnover is extremely high in the dealership environment. Therefore, the challenges in opening an account, transferring account, I wonder sometimes if dealers go, I don't know if it's worth it. Secondly, because dealers put so much weight in any role for a performance-based bonus, the people that are earning that bonus typically don't want to leave much of that money within the dealership for the dealership to match their RSP contributions. If you had a much higher level of high salaried employees in the dealership, as a general rule of thumb, that may be a bit different. But when you've got commission-based salespeople, service advisors, technicians are commission-based, most of the time, people that earn their commission want to keep all of their commission. Hence, they're not even motivated to enroll into an RSP program. And that's, again, just a personal experience I've seen in car dealers.
So would you say the best advice there would be to maybe offer it to more of the long-term employees?
That's a great question, Ian, and I think you're absolutely right. The question is, where does a dealer really go truly get this education from to set this up? Accounting firms don't really provide that. The manufacturer absolutely doesn't provide that. So quite a complicated structure, and quite frankly, dealers don't even know where to begin. If there was a more seamless approach to that, I think you may find dealers really trying to encourage their long-term employees to stay, because it's a great retention program. but I worry about the execution of that in this industry.
Well, the reason I bring it up is you brought up the point, and we've talked about on the show many times about retention in the industry. About 80%, in some cases up to a 90% turnover in staff. Part of that may be solved with, just like you have a 90-day trial period when you start a job. I guess your trial period, standardly in Canada, is 90 days. If they had a carrot or an option where it was like, okay, well, after you've been here for a year or two, this is a reason to continue to be an employee, that may serve as a factor in retaining more employees, which we all know is a major issue.
I think it's a great idea, and I think more dealers, if they could find easy access to structuring that within their business, I think you'd find more dealers jumping on board with that, especially the large dealer groups that need to retain much more talent. I think it's a great idea, and it'd be great if some organization could come forward that was recognized by the automotive industry to put on the seminars to structure that for dealers. Maybe that's a business opportunity.
Yeah, like CADA or NADA, for example, actually having at one of their events maybe a seminar on how you can do that as a dealer.
Exactly. I think it's a great idea, Ian.
Yeah. Thanks, Bree. So, Aaron, what's your thought?
Well, when you talk about RRSPs, you're giving, it's like a carrot dangle to people who start earning a salary, right? It's like saying, hey, this is the only way you can possibly get a tax refund. So why don't you put some money into an RRSP? What they don't explain is, this is not that I'm against RRSP. It's just that you need to structure it in a way that you can get the best value out of it. Yes, the RRSP grows without paying taxes while it's growing, but the taxes are deferred to the end. At a time when the person really needs the money, he's paying the highest amount of taxes to withdraw that. So, is there other alternatives to that? Yes. So, in companies, what happens is people say, you know what, I'll encourage you to save money. If you put 4% of your annual income or 4% of your monthly income, we'll batch it with another 4%. So, you feel motivated to save that money. But when you start drawing it out, that's when the complications started. Are there alternatives to investing for retirement? Yes, there are. Are they better? Yes. Can you get it tax free? Yes. But I'm not talking of a tax free savings account. I'm talking of another vehicle where people could invest money for their retirement, get it totally grown tax free, and there's a structured way you can withdraw it tax free too. Not many people know that. And that's one of the secrets of the 10 secrets that I've not just spoke about that covers that up. But if you're encouraging people to save, they have to find the right vehicle to save and pull it out in a tax efficient way. That's all
the first thing I quickly thought about, Ian, to add to Mr. Pace is that, and also to add to Fareed as well, is you will have more retention if you educate the people in the industry, right? You can bring us in, right? We're happy to go to every single dealership and have classes and show them, because we don't charge you for our services, right? We get paid by the investment banks, insurance companies, the banks we work with, right? We don't charge our clients. It's a no fee, right? Financial advice. I give investment banking level advice to somebody who's a refugee. I give investment banking level advice to somebody who's a middle income Canadian. Right? I give investment banking level advice to somebody who's a multimillionaire or a billionaire. It's the same advice. And so what we are saying is that you will have more buy-in from your staff, right? If you give them hope, right? There was a UBC study of there's two rats swimming in little bottles, right? And in one room, right, they had a light, into that bottle, and the other room they they completely turn off the light. In the first room, the rat died within a few seconds. In the second room, the other rat was swimming after 23 hours. What's the reason?
Hope.
The other room, the other rat had hope. Yeah, there's a way out of this mess that I'm in, right? Does that make sense? So people, our school, college, universities, I went to London Business School. I didn't know how to balance my it's embarrassing to say that, right? I know financial theory, I know management, I know marketing, sales, right? But I didn't know how to manage my own money. My student loans were $168,000 out of university. and I didn't know how to write a resume, how to get a job. True story, right? So there must be people like me, and I feel for them, right? So but I'm here because I've suffered, right? So anybody else is suffering, reach out to me. We'll have a like a coffee with it, right? So right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, bud.
Well, you know what? It's very funny. I've had this discussion with my kids, and there's a saying which I probably won't get correct, but kids come out of school, high school, and they can tell you that the mitochondria are the cells which provide energy for the body, but they have no idea how to balance a checkbook.
So
And
true.
it's a very interesting thing. Um, and that's probably one of the biggest problems in the car industry is we come into this and many people in the industry, if you're a technician, if you're a parts advisor, if you're a salesperson, you've come out with you've done this because of your personality. A technician learns about how things fit and everything else. And of course, these days they learn how to plug in a computer and read the software. But again, it's the financial side that is very challenging. So I come from a generation where people got into the car business, they worked very hard, and they did well, and they performed, and they were noticed, and they managed to buy a dealership somehow, some way. The manufacturer came to them and said, "Listen, we've got a buy-in program, and if you're prepared to live in Nowheresville, Saskatchewan or Indiana or whatever it is, we can help you out here, and you can put your name on that." And these days, a different story. So the question for everybody, and for Rita, I'm actually going to call on you first too about this, is for experienced people, what should they do today to build the financial ability to realistically acquire equity in a dealership? And your comment earlier about that $500,000 might be a better place is very interesting. So, Fareed, I'll call on you first.
Thank you. So I think the manufacturers had it right when they created such a entity as Motors Holding. It was a great entry point into the automotive industry, but only one manufacturer truly created that structure, which was General Motors. Unfortunately, General Motors canceled that structure. It must be nearly 20 years ago. So how does a general manager invest into a car dealership? There's three things I always advise wannabe general manager dealer principles. Number one, be extremely flexible on location. Jeff, you're actually made a very good point that when General Motors were handing out franchises, it was Slave Lake, Alberta, and good luck. And if you can sell to the Eskimos, you're going to have a great month. Number two is understanding how much you truly have as net worth. And that's the biggest problem. And number three is being able to take a risk, understanding that coming in as a junior partner, you risk a lot. And I think that's why 90% of people that have the ability to be dealer principals don't go any further, because it's risk versus reward. Am I willing to risk everything I have, and what will I truly get back? Because there's horror stories in the car business of how this general manager came in and he got, excuse the expression, screwed over by this dealer who made all these promises. So those are the challenges. But general managers, those are the 3 points that I mentioned earlier that they should start off with. Flexibility of location is most probably the first step that you need to discuss if you truly want to be an investor in a car business.
That's a great point. And sorry, somebody had a question?
Well, I had a question. So Fareed, obviously, we talked about an example of 500,000. What would your recommendation be to say a 25-year-old car person today whose long-term strategy is maybe to own a dealership at 35? What kind of number should they be shooting for to invest to get that kind of buy-in? Like, what would your advice for them be? if it was your child, for example, or a friend of yours.
The advice that I give most general managers is they should try to own at least a third of the asset that they're investing in. That's the golden rule. Why? Because when you're a third investor, you actually have more legal recourse to protect your investment. Most people come in, however, on a 10% buy-in over the next 15 years. And the reason that happens is people want to accommodate their future by their peace of mind and comfort. For example, I know people that would much rather invest 10% into a dealership in Milton because they live in Mississauga than try to take that same capital and put a third of that money into a dealership in Slave Lake, Alberta. So, but that 10%, you're risking your money for a lot longer period of time, because at 10%, obviously the asset's a lot more expensive in the GTA. The average dealership, to give you some numbers, the average dealership in the GTA trades at about $12.5 million. That's what you need to raise as capital to buy somebody out when you factor in goodwill, assets, and property. To give you another scary stat, we have just sold a dealership. I can't tell you which one, and I can't tell you the exact amount, but just in goodwill, that's not including any inventories, any assets, or land and building. One store in the GTA, we got an offer, which the seller has accepted, of $80 million plus.
Wow.
Now, who's got $8 million sitting around, and how long is it going to take for you to buy even up to 1/3 of that? That's what's.
Just check my wallet here.
There you go. It is a Lada Suzuki brand dealership, so it's going to be quite successful.
Well, that brings up something very interesting, because on this topic, moving literally, the growth of mega dealers is making this. Is it making it that individuals really have a minimal chance? Because in fact, some of the biggest groups in Canada are now they're now opening dealerships in Slave Lake, in et cetera, et cetera. And I think down in the States, AutoNation and Lithia have places in some of the smaller towns. So is there really an opportunity?
Well, actually, coming back to that, today there is a real lack of quality general managers or even senior managers in a business, fixed operations directors, general sales managers. If I had my son in the business and he had aspired to a GSM/general manager role, and he had talent, to be quite honest with you, if I thought he's best off staying in the GTA or in Southern Ontario, I would say don't invest your money. Invest your money into with some people like Adnan or Aaron here, and get a better return, because you're actually much more in demand today than you ever were in the future, because a lot of our talent, unfortunately, has left our industry. So we're trying to plug holes in a leaking boat. So if you're a talented senior manager, you're most probably better off staying as an employee, in my opinion, if you want to stay within Southern Ontario or the Vancouver area or Montreal.
Question from the audience. Is the real estate as important as the business, or more important? It seems like the hardest part to get involved is the real estate side of the business.
Real estate really is a key for a long-term strategy when you're buying a dealership. It's going to increase, if it's in the right market, anywhere between 5 to 8% annually. It's a great nest egg. A lot of our clients will sell their business for $1 million because they're getting $12.5 million for the property they purchased 25 years ago at $1.5 million. So real estate is a great long-term strategy. The problem today is For you to be able to get into property, you need to have at least 35% down. So when you're buying into the business, are you better off taking your capital and keeping it in the operations business, or trying to diverse it into the property? So most people don't have that kind of liquidity. Dealer groups are acquiring businesses for property, but they have the banks on their side to get much better terms than someone like myself could.
Right.
Except Slave Lakes, there's less money up front to buy your dirt.
Very much so. Very much. Very much.
Aaron, how about yourself?
I'm just listening to Fareed mainly because of the auto industry. My exposure to auto industry has been little. Let me say, whenever I wanted to buy a car every 3 to 4 years, I'd go there and do something. But the fact is, I see the point in whatever he's making. It's to build equity, like you were saying. That's the point, right? We're talking about building equity right now, correct? So you got to have a commitment in the sense that, like you're saying, 30%. You got to have, let me say, skin in the game. And in anything that you do, if you don't have that, you're not going to be putting the effort to earn more, right? So yes, we should be having that kind of a commitment. If you have that kind of income, if you have that kind of resources, it makes total sense. You have to get involved. You got to put your foot where your mouth is, kind of thing, right? And get involved right away. Yeah, it makes sense.
One thing to add to Fareed and your Aaron right now is that you said 30% skin in the game. That's great, right? There's a great investor person. His name is Ray Dalio. He's one of the greatest investors alive, right? That nobody has heard of. Everybody knows Warren Buffett, but Ray Dalio says don't invest in. People say diversification, they misunderstand that word, right? They put all their money in stocks, they put all their money in real estate, they put all their money in this car dealership, what we're talking about here. So 30% I understand, for sure, yeah, put it in the car business, that's what you're good at. But invest in other, what I call asset classes. Real estate is an asset class. Stock is an asset class. Gold is an asset class. Like life insurance is an asset class. So if you allocate your asset money in different asset classes, according to Ray Dalio, in a 70-year cycle, one of them will go to zero and one of them will shoot to the moon. He doesn't know which is going to go, right? He called it the all-weather portfolio, right? So that's something I highly recommend everybody to do. Learn about different asset classes. And then whichever you feel comfortable with, definitely 30% in your car dealership, and then go into different asset classes. Bitcoin is not even an asset class because it's in the ether. If the government shuts the internet tomorrow, I'm so sorry, you've lost your your asset class, right? So go into physical assets, right? It's more tangible, it's real. You can touch it, feel it. So that would be my not recommendation, but sincere desire that everybody, you learn about different asset classes, right? Then you make a decision on what to get.
I think it's an interesting topic in the sense that a lot of people will go in and buy themselves a promotion and not look at what the real financial aspects of it are. And they say, I just promoted myself from GM to DP and it cost me this much money and now I get to be the big boy on the block. And really, they didn't put the research into it to actually figure out that they could have made twice the percent return somewhere else. So it's a really interesting dynamic.
And they also have somebody else there that can take away their money just like that.
Yeah, I think the key when you look at buying a dealership, for example, and I've had the luxury to review some of Fareed's proposals for different stores, and I also, I guess, fortunately, unfortunately, have an MBA, so I researched it all. You've got to look at all the angles. You've got to look at, what's the return on investment, what's the risk, how long till you get your investment capital back, what are you buying, what's the long-term, profitability of that dealership. Nothing's a straight line, as Dave pointed out last week, because we were talking about share of profit. He said also you got to, as an employee, it would be great if you take a share of my losses too sometimes. So nothing is a straight line. So you've got to look at all those things, and you've got to determine whether the risk is worth it for you. Because at the end of the day, if you're, you've got to look at your own financial future as well. So, and as Fareed already said, it may not be for everybody, right? So that's my thoughts there. And I think there was a question.
Actually, while you're looking that up, I do have to say it sounds like a slogan from the some military branch in some country. It might be down south, but we don't want to say that. But it's the saying is something of the fact that the desire of the many, but the calling of the few.
Yeah, I mean, do your homework first. Invest in different asset classes. I highly recommend that. Invest in what you know and you're interested in. I think some people aren't interested in it, and that's part of it. But also really make the best decision you can based on mitigating that risk. And as Fareed also said, it may just not be for you, right? Ownership in business is not for everybody. So do we have any questions from the audience? I think I'm out of questions. So is there any questions or thoughts? We still got time.
I have a question for Fareed, and reading between the lines, actually. It sounds like for a professional in the car industry, truly, if they really want to get equity, their best chance of success is to, just like I guess in anything, to go for what the risk is the smallest, the return is the greatest, and what they're putting out is the smallest, i.e. Slave Lake, Alberta, or Nowheresville, Texas.
Yeah. See, I think it's important to understand what is the possible return for your money if you invested into a car dealership. And this really goes for your audience more than anything else, Ian and Jeff. Whenever we look at the return on investment, we look at return on capital invested. If you are looking at ever buying a business, especially a car dealership, if you're not getting 20 to 25% return on your cash, you will never accumulate enough money to buy out the remaining shares when you come in. So the rule of thumb is look at an opportunity, do your normalization, do your calculations, but ensure that you're getting 20 to 25% on your cash. Now, the larger groups have the opportunity to invest heavy into stores. So sometimes they'll even take a risk at 15% return on cash if the brand is desirable. For example, Mercedes-Benz, Audi, Lamborghini, Land Rover, Jaguar. But the rule of thumb is 20 to 25% on your cash. I don't know if that would ever help any of your people, but that's a little inside secret that we look to.
Well, I actually know a fella that invested, a professional in the business, but invested up in northern Manitoba, and because truly that is where you've got a chance of a return on your investment. The real estate is cheap. The principals there, many of them have worked very hard and would like to go somewhere other than northern Manitoba, and so they get somebody that wants to build something for themselves there.
And sorry for interrupting, but I'll give you another example much closer to home. We've got dealerships in North Bay, Northern Ontario, that are making huge sums of money. But the biggest challenge is whenever we list those, the limited number of buyers, because the ones that can cut the check look for main hubs. So those dealerships, when they come on the market, are going to be sold to would-be dealer principals, but you're going to have to be willing, again, relocating to places like North Bay.
Yeah, well, that's certainly is a big shock for somebody who comes from Toronto or Vancouver or Seattle or New York, Chicago, that sort of thing.
That's a big shock for somebody coming from Slave Lake, Jeff.
Yeah.
I don't know. Have you been to Slave Lake?
Poor Slave Lake took a beating this morning.
By the way, folks of Slave Lake, love the town. Great place.
Well, you know, and it's a very interesting thing that you say that, because I've been seeing a lot of posts. I mean, randomly in places where, you know, the old days were that the dealer had kids that wanted to take over, and many of these kids, the first thing they do as soon as they get out of high school is get the heck out of Dodge, and there is this the parent in their 70s with nowhere to turn to. So they do have to find somebody that's got some desire to really make something of themselves and invest in being in somewhere small. I know a fella that got on with a big group that got a piece of a store up in the Northwest Territories, and he put in his 5-10 years and bailed and came back to the real world, because we talk about Calgary having cold winters. Oh, Northwest Territories, the winter starts in September and ends in June. Any other questions from anybody, or
I have a question for everybody in the room. I guess the government of Canada, what they're doing now is they're printing not millions of dollars, not billions of dollars, but trillions of dollars, right? They're just printing it away and giving to an average person, right? They're giving Canada emergency response benefits. They're giving it to businesses. Here's $40,000. Take care of your payroll. Give us back 30,000. Nobody realizes the risk, right? Ian mentioned the risk. What is the risk of doing that, right? And what is the impact that's about to happen, right? With COVID still going on, right? The biggest risk that we face now are increased taxes in our personal incomes, right? That's going to happen, right? There is, my food costs have gone up, right, by 30%, right, in 1 year. I own property in Vancouver, right? So my property taxes have gone up by 10%, even though the property value has gone down 30%. Oh, what a great deal that is, right? And what else can I say? The biggest pot of gold for the government is the money inside corporations. Your hard-earned money, that the retained earnings that you have in car dealerships, the government is going to just come and say, give me 50% of that money in taxes. That's about to happen this year, right? How many dealers know about that? How to get that money out tax-free? And God forbid, knock on wood, if the dealer passes away, do you know that their family, their heirs, cannot access that money in the corporation? Did you know that? That's something people don't know as well. That to take the money out, first you'll lose 50% in taxes, and when you take the money out, it'll be hit with another 50% of taxes. So if you have $10 million, you'll end up paying $7.5 million in taxes. And
that's why it's better to invest in Slave Lake.
That 2.5 million, the family has to come up from outside, not from inside the corporation. So these are risks that people, don't think about, don't know about, right? And there's no information out there. So that's why it's good to hire the best professionals, right? That can assist you in doing these, right? Taking money out of your corporation, right? But why, if you want Revenue Canada to be your biggest, and the government of Canada to be your biggest beneficiaries, then just keep things as is, right? Otherwise, hire the best lawyers, the best accountants, the best financial planners to assist you, because legally, the government tells you legally you can take your money out of your corporation legally, but if you don't know how, and you don't, people say ignorance is bliss. I said financial ignorance could be a living nightmare for you and your family, right? Those who own dealerships. Like, Farid, you have a comment. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say thanks, Adnan, for that. It's very realistic, but now I'm going to just go and cut my wrist now. But thank you.
But I think it's interesting, Ed, on what you said, because so many people in the industry strive to be a a small percentage owner, and Farid, you said it properly, the 30%, and 10% just seems to be a number. And they give a GM 10% to keep him there so he doesn't go anywhere. But he's an absolute victim, or she's an absolute victim to whatever goes on. If there's a death in the family, a big group moves in, whatever happens, they just got to stand on the sidelines. They got no votes, they got no opinion, they got absolutely nothing to go on, and yet they don't realize that when they're getting into it. And it was really interesting, a fresh thought on that. So it was interesting perspective.
Well, we're actually putting a deal together in Montreal. Actually, a dealer's retiring. General manager's been with him over 20 years and wants to do a buy-in, buy-out. But because the dealer that's selling has such a valuable asset, domestic dealership doing extremely well, the general manager is coming in for 14%, because 14%, and is taking on financial loan obligations of $8.9 million on the understanding that the business, as he buys it out, will pay that out over the next 7 or 8 years. I wouldn't sleep very well at night if I was borrowing $8.9 million, and I personally guaranteed part of that. So, it's a great business to get into. I don't want to knock the business. It's a great business, and a lot of people have become very wealthy in this business. But it's all related to how much risk are you willing to take for the return that you should expect. My own advice is, just like great advice that everybody's been given, we are not the be all and the end all of getting a good return on our money in this industry, but it's a fun journey. I can assure you of that. It's a fun journey, the car business.
Well, one thing I do have to add to that, I actually know quite a few people that are now investing in independent used car dealerships, and the uptake on that is vastly different, and many of them they're seeing returns of that of new car dealerships with a fraction of the investment. But everybody, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a tremendous show. I think we could end up building a 6-hour special event out of this one. But I wanted to mention to everybody too, our vendor speak is taking on a new format. We'll be contacting people very quickly here with how we're going to, from the old days of one person flogging their wares for the whole hour and trying to fill it, to 3 vendors of their own product. And we're working on various topics, which including the I Need a Job show. So we'll get some people on there to help them, such as recruiters, etc. And other ones will be internet leads and lead handling and DMSs and that sort of stuff. So stay in touch and check your inbox. Ian.
Very nice meeting everyone. Thank you very much for your time. And Jeff and Ian, again, you guys bring great topics to the table of the industry, and I think it's much appreciated by the industry. So thank you for letting me be a part of it, and nice to meet everybody.
Tell your friends.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.
Okay, guys.